Well, we wanted to introduce Judy Mohr, who we're so excited to have her here with us today. Yay, she is a phenomenon. She knows all the things and she loves to research and really dig deep on so much of this um, internet and cybersecurity and all the things that we need to be doing that I know I get overwhelmed with. So it's nice to kind of have Judy on our side and have her as a resource. And so we were super excited that she is joining us this morning from New Zealand. It's like 6 in the morning, but she's here and she's excited. And I will hand it over to you, Judy.
Cool. Thank you. Yes, welcome. It is 6 o'clock in the morning where I am. And no, this is not early for me. I'm actually normally up at this time. And you'll find me normally at my computer or getting ready, at least finding my milk, because I have a glass of milk every morning. So I'm normally up at this time. So this is pretty normal for me. Right, I'm going to share my screen and hopefully this will all work. And this could be very entertaining as soon as things happen. You're going to see yourselves for a second, but that's okay until I get that. Got it. Okay. Where is it? There it is. Ha! Right. Can we all see this?
Yes.
Yes? Fantastic. I can no longer see you, but that's okay. We can cope with this concept. So I just wanted to give you a bit of an insight as to where I'm coming from. So I believe that this is a group of editors, correct? Mm-hmm. Yes? Yep. Fantastic. So that at least, it means I tailored everything a little bit more appropriately because I wanted to focus on some of the things that editors themselves have to think about, not just writers. But to give you an idea, I've been writing for over 2 decades. I did the math on this the other day and I kind of freaked myself out. It's near on 3 decades now that I've been writing. It's like, oh, okay. And I've been working as a professional editor since 2015. So next year will be 10 years in business. Oh my God, I kind of totally freaked myself out. But I have been around in the internet space since the beginning. I actually had my first website in 2000. Back in the days when you had to do everything by hand coding, and I totally hated it. So for those of you who hate websites and hate doing what we're doing with building stuff, I get it, I understand, but trust me, the technology we have today is nothing like what we had to deal with back then. But I hated that website, and so I kind of abandoned that. But in 2013, I decided I needed to be serious about my writing and I needed to be serious about publishing. And there was this one thing that kept coming through that was platform, website, social media. And it kind of freaked me out because I remembered that website in 2000 and I really didn't want to go down this road. But I sucked it up and I did it. And my first the first iteration of my author website came online in 2014. And I think I'm like up to my 20th iteration now. I don't know. But it was so easy to build it. The technology was so much nicer than what I had back in 2000. So that is kind of where I'm coming from. And I've been actively building this as an online, my online platform for over a decade. But my focus has always been about ease and safety because, dare I say it, stalkers are real. I actually have a few as it's turned out. So we have to think about our safety. All right, so today we are not going to talk at all about how to market your services or your books or anything else that you happen to have. We're not going to talk about how to build a list and get more followers. And we're not going to even talk about the little minutia detail about building an online platform. Today's focus is entirely about some of the things that we need to keep in mind, the hidden traps that can be putting your physical or internet security at risk. Okay, so when I give this talk, some people are getting a bit carried away and they go, oh, I need to make lots of notes. And I need to point out this right now. you don't need to take lots of notes, because everything that we're going to talk about today is actually in my book, which came out earlier this year, which is Hidden Traps of the Internet, Building and Protecting Your Online Platform. So I will bring up this slide again later so you can have all the information, or take your QR code, or write whatever you need to write down so you can get a copy of that book. But everything that we're talking about today is in that book, so it makes things nice and easy. I also have to put in a very quick disclaimer because I'm not a lawyer. So please don't take anything that I say as legal advice. This is just accumulation of knowledge that I've accumulated over the years and have added to over the years as the laws have caught up with internet technology, because that's really what, from a legal perspective, is happening, is that the laws are they're hopping along in the background, catching up, because they're not quite up to play with what is really going on. Okay, so the first question I always ask, and I do want you guys to sort of answer and give me some ideas. When I say the word platform, what do you think of? And remember, I can't see you, so you're gonna have to just pipe in and
Yeah, so feel free to unsilence yourselves if anyone wants to answer the platform question.
Whatever website you're choosing to
okay.
be
Website.
on.
Yeah. So we got website. Anything else?
I think anywhere that you're putting yourself out there publicly, whether it be via your cell phone on WhatsApp, maybe for some of us that work with other companies, all your social media. I don't know. Does print qualify? Does like our book stuff qualify, or ebooks, I guess?
Okay, so you're thinking exactly right. All of this. So when I asked this question in various different presentations or spaces, the things that people quickly come up with are like things like social media, website, newsletter. Some people will quickly say newsletter. They'll say the blog, and they may even say podcasts. But as you said, and I think that was Linda's voice that I heard, yes, books. Books are part of our platform, and so are your other published articles. So if you happen to be in anthologies, or you've done newspaper articles or magazine articles, these are all part of your platform. But so are your memberships. So like if you've joined the EFA or the CIEP, these are all part of your platform, because they tell you that you are within an organization that you can say, yes, I'm a member of, and hey, look, because I'm a member of this, I am professional development going on, continuing my skills. That's all part of your platform. But so are writers groups. And I do actually recommend that editors, particularly developmental editors, that you join writers groups if you're not already a member of writers groups, because a lot of marketing for editors comes from word of mouth. And the more you can connect with your client base, the better off you're going to be. But so is conferences, going to conferences. This is all part of your platform. Volunteering, do not underestimate volunteering. And of course, your in-person stuff. Anything that you are doing, it's basically a platform is anything and everything you're doing to connect to your readers and to your colleagues and to your clients. It's everything. And the most important aspect of this is to understand that platform is about connections, because the most important, or at least I have found for myself, the best form of marketing is that word of mouth. So by fostering those connections, I'm getting much better concepts. But I do want to kind of remind everyone that you can't do it all. There's only so many hours of the day. Sleep is a thing. And if you spread yourself too thinly, you actually start to look like you can't do any of it. It's actually better to do one thing well and to do it really well than to do 10 things half-assed. So just keep that in mind. For writers, when I'm talking to writers, I remind them that this means they actually have to write. What is the point of building a platform if you don't have a product to sell? And that's for us as editors. It means we need to be building on our clients and on our contracts. If we don't focus on those contracts, word of mouth is actually going to count against us, not for us. So just keep that in mind. And remember that we do have families and we have friends, and not everything is about writing, which, hey, that is something I think quite a few of us probably have problems with. I know I do. Get outside, enjoy the sunshine while you can. But of course, you didn't come today to actually hear about work-life balance. We're talking about internet. So we're going to talk more the rest of today. We're going to point out a couple of the issues that you really need to be thinking about for internet security and where you're going. And I just want to open your eyes and get you thinking, just protecting yourself and questioning whether that thing is a good thing for you to be doing. So in my mind, internet security falls into three main categories. You have your system settings, which would be things like the toggle switches that you get on Facebook that says, oh, use this, don't do this, or it might be a drop-down menus that happen. They're sort of in our control, but we're at the mercy of the developers of the websites. Then you have our practices, and this is things like whether we have chosen to use a virus checker or a virus scanner or not, whether we're actually keeping our computers up to date and healthy, whether we're using two-factor authentication, our email practices, our passwords, that sort of thing. It's sort of in our control, but we are a little bit still at the mercy of developers, but that's okay. The third category, in my opinion, is the most dangerous, and this is what we post. This is our messages and our content that we're sending out. This is how we choose to interact with others. It is 100% in our control because we can make that choice to interact or not. But because it is 100% in our control, it's the most dangerous because we can say something in a heated moment, or we may have sent a message and we didn't even realize what we had sent. We've sent it to the wrong person, or you name it, and things can go wrong. So let's just break this down and give you some of the sections or the hidden traps that are within these things that we really need to be thinking about. Within site settings, you just have to remember that they are constantly changing. The sites are constantly updating. And what I want you to do is I want you to go through every single account you have, if you haven't already done so, and make sure you know what all of the settings are doing. Make sure you know the setting, that you're using the one that you need to be using, and you know exactly how it's going to behave. What is it doing? You're going to be looking for anything that is granting public access to your information by default. Here's an example of one that you may not realize you're leaking information. So quite a few of us have got LinkedIn. And on LinkedIn, by default, this is brand new accounts, default setting, your contact details are visible to your network by default. Now, I had to put network in inverted quotes because that is what it says. And that sounds innocent until you discover what a network really is. Well, according to LinkedIn, a network is up to 3 degrees of freedom from your connections. And your connections are the people that you've befriended on the site. They're the people that you've said, yes, I will be friends with you, or yes, I will connect with you. Yes, I will do this. So if we do the math, let's just pick the number 5 just to make the math easy. Say you have 5 connections, and this is 5 people you've befriended on the site, where in reality, people have hundreds of connections. But let's say you've only got 5, and let's say each of those 5 connections have got 5, and each of those connections got 5 people, and each of those connections have 5 connections. Then that means your network is made up of 625 people by default. And that is 625 people who have access to your contact details by default. And of course, in reality, we have hundreds of connections. So that could be thousands of people who have access to your contact details by default. This is the email that you're logging in with and the phone number that you've put into the site. How many of you are kind of freaking out right now? Again, I can't see you, so I'm just it's a bit scary when you suddenly think these numbers.
That's definitely alarming. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, it is alarming. But when you know that this is a risk, you can manage it. What I recommend is
Judy.
Yes?
No, and I think what's interesting about what you're pointing out is, and I put this in the chat, that this is information that we can pass on to our clients as well when we're helping them get set up. And it really puts into perspective knowing, setting boundaries and how much we should be sharing and what kind of information we should be sharing and what's the stuff that really does not need to be on there.
Yeah.
That, yeah, not even, it may be if, but just not be on there. So yes, thank you for that.
Yeah, and it's just, this is why I say it's always important to understand what the settings are, including your membership settings. So I haven't got a slide for this, but like EFA, there is actually a setting on our memberships that says our contact details are made public. What that setting means is that they are included in the directory listing of our memberships. You can say, no, you want them to be private, but if you're part of the discussion forums, guess what? I can still get your email address. I can still get your contact details because there are other ways of doing it. It's actually a different system. And yeah, this is why it's important to understand what the settings actually do, not what you think they do. It's pretty alarming how sometimes they're not what you think they are. Right. So my recommendation is every single time, without fail, when you notice a change in the interface in anything that you're using online, you go in and you check those settings. You double check. Sometimes what it means is that a new feature comes online that you can take advantage of. Example, my web hosting about midway through last year, the interface totally changed. It was like, whoa, okay, everything's like so different. What, wait a minute, what? And I went and checked those settings, and suddenly for the first time, I was able to put in two-factor authentication. It is something that we had been asking for as users of the site for a long time, but they finally brought it in, and they brought it in at the time that that interface changed. So basically, every single time that interface changes, the odds are there's something in the background that has also changed that you can possibly take advantage of, but be warned that sometimes the older accounts, so the pre-existing memberships, will have grandfathered into a setting that behaves or mimics the way it used to do, which is not necessarily what you want. So even if the default has changed, you've been grandfathered into old settings. So just keep that in mind. And Meta, so this is the company that owns Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, Threads, that company, and of course X, formerly known as Twitter. They are the worst offenders for this, constantly changing the settings and constantly just doing something. And settings have moved. I mean, I think, was it the other day I was in there and noticed that Facebook had changed. Not only did they take away settings, but thankfully they set the default behavior for the entire website to actually use the setting in a way that I would have preferred. So that at least was good, but the setting just suddenly vanished. And I can't remember off the top of my head what the setting was, but it was like, where'd that go? Oh no, where did it go? So just go and check. They change all the time. When we're talking about things like our security practices, so this is the second category, we're talking about things like our computers. And for me, I mean, if my computer dies, I'm kind of stuffed. It's like my entire life is on this computer. So it's so important that we run our operating system updates. I know if you're like me, you get that word update, so, you know, the Windows update that comes up and you're just like dreading it because it's going to take forever to run. But those operating system updates, even the ones for Mac, often include security updates. So don't just avoid them. I also recommend that you use a paid virus checker. This is, the computer's our livelihood, and we need to make sure that it is healthy, that it stays healthy. Yes, the free ones are okay-ish, but the databases associated with them are not as extensive. shall I say. And I'm not going to tell you which one is the best one to use in terms of the virus checker or internet firewall programs, because it changes every year. My recommendation is actually just to go to one of these three websites, PC Magazine, PC World, or Macworld, depending on the operating system that you use, and look at their reviews. So you're going to go to that website and you're going to say the best virus checker for 2025, because all of the software has now moved into 2025 instead of leaving 2024 behind. So you're going to get those reviews. And these are independent review sites. They are operating system specific, but they have no affiliation to Microsoft or Apple, which makes them really good. And they will tell you the good and the bad. And so you can make an informed decision as to what you want to go with. Run your browser updates. They happen frequently too. And run your software updates. Microsoft just recently ran their updates for Office. Who else is complaining about it? Because, oh my God, can Copilot go away, please? If you know how to turn off Copilot, that's the AI program that Microsoft decided to put in Microsoft Office. If you know how to turn that thing off and make it go away, please tell me, because it's really annoying.
Judy, are you using it on the desktop or on the cloud version?
I'm on the desktop.
Because I remember having it at the beginning, and I did do something that it just disappeared, so I don't get it anymore. But now I'm curious. I'm going to look at that again. Maybe I've just chosen not to see it. But yes, I agree with you. All these added features that we never requested getting added are not fun and definitely feel invasive.
It's just like, oh my God, just go away. It's like, no. But hey, these are the things that happen. Okay, so you've got the browser updates, software updates. Clear your cookies. For those of you who don't know, browsers, the way they work is they get little packets of data. So little packets of information from the websites that you visit. These cookies, as they're called, will help you remember who you are if you've forgotten, because like how many of us honestly can remember who we are half the time. They will allow you to remember various different other aspects, but sometimes these cookies will actually slow your computer down if you've got too many, because they've gotten confused and they don't know which one to send. But some cookies are actually malicious as well. So some cookies that get deposited onto your computer are actually tracking. They're tracking your keystrokes and what you're doing. So if you just clear these cookies on a regular basis, you're just that much healthier in your security. And I also beg you now to use two-factor authentication. So two-factor authentication is when you log into a site and then you have to take this extra step, whatever that step might be. For every system possible, doesn't matter what it is, please use it. The number of hackers that could have been stopped in their tracks if people would just use two-factor authentication is amazing. So just use it. However, where possible, set up multiple methods. There is a risk if you use just the authenticator apps. If you lose access to your phone, you lose access to whatever that system was that needed the two-factor authentication if you don't have a backup with. I speak from experience on this one because I've done it and it was like, oh man, no. Google, you need to have two-factor authentication now for any new Google accounts that you set up. It's kind of a requirement. But they will push the Google Authenticator app specifically, which you can access within your phone. There's no additional biometrics in it. So if somebody can get into your phone, they can get into your Authenticator app on Google. So I don't recommend the Google Authenticator app specifically. But what had happened is I had done a factory reset of my phone. I was trying to deal with the fact that I had a stalker. I did a factory reset of my phone, and there were a couple of Google accounts that were critical Google accounts that I didn't have backup authentication methods to get into them. I could get into my data by using the recovery information. So the stuff I wanted to protect, which was things like my emails, my Google Drive, and my photos, I could protect all that. I can get access to that, but I couldn't go into the system and lock it down again. I couldn't get into the security side of the system because I couldn't use the two-factor authentication because the phone no longer had access to the Authenticator app. And yeah, oopsie, those accounts, I had to basically just abandon them because I couldn't even delete them. So yeah, just don't do what I did. Please, just don't. Okay, this is something that as an editor, I think is very important that we think about. And I have found that when you're dealing with the internet, that one email account is not enough. I actually know of some people that they tie everything in their lives to one email. And they are so proud of the fact that they've used two-factor authentication and they've got different passwords on everything. But it's like the moment somebody knows what your email is connected to things, they're going to start trying to hack into your systems. They're going to start scamming you. They're going to start doing stuff. And the more you can separate accounts out, the higher or the better your security. So my recommendation for editors is this. You need at least one email account that's your primary. It's Secret Squirrel. Nobody knows what that email is. And it's the one connected to your money. For me, it's also connected to my taxes because in New Zealand, we pay our taxes online. We do a lot of things online now. Even my health records, which are government listed because we have a government database for our health records in New Zealand, it is all that one email. If this particular email gets hacked, my entire identity gets hacked. So that's why I say Secret Squirrel. Nobody knows what it is. Don't use a custom domain because if you lose access to your custom domain, you lose access to everything. This is one of those things. Then I recommend that you have a secondary administration email, which is going to be things that are a little bit more publicly known. And your domain registration is actually one that could potentially be publicly known. And I'll come back to this in a sec, and I will show you why this is dangerous. So keep that sort of thing in mind. And I do occasionally recommend a tertiary, especially if you're doing things like publishing. If you're doing writing as well as editing, then maybe you might want a tertiary admin account that's associated for your writer admin stuff. So for example, I have an admin account for the publishing accounts. I have an admin account for my KDP for Amazon. I have an admin. These are all different emails that I have. Then you want a social media email. This is the email that you're logging into your social media with. So you're logging into Facebook, you're logging into Instagram. It has no connection to your money. It has no connection to your website. It has no connection to anything else. It is just for logging into social media. However, remember I said that LinkedIn, everybody has access to your contact details, and that contact details will include the email address that you're logging in with. If you choose to keep that as publicly available to your network, then you do not want to be logging into LinkedIn using your social media email account, because then they can get into everything, including your Facebook. So just keep that in mind. And just as a side note, on Facebook, you can actually have a publicly known email on your business pages, which is different to your login. So you can still have that separation there. I recommend that we have a general communications email. This is the email that you might have printed on your business cards. It's the email that you might be sending and talking to clients or whatever. But I recommend you have a secondary communications email, which is public facing. This is the one that's listed on your website, like an inquiries email. It's the one that you're sending your newsletters from, that sort of thing. The reason why I recommend these two email addresses is because the one that's listed on your website is food for fodder. The scammers will come in and they'll start scamming you. On a regular basis, I get these login scams. I get people going through and saying, oh, there's a problem with your hosting. And they do correctly specify the hosting provider I'm with. They say there's a problem with your hosting, and the email it's gone to is my public-facing communications email. And that's why I know straight away it's a scam, because I don't have my hosting listed with that email. It's listed with one of my admin emails for a reason. I also recommend that you have a spam email. Now, this is you're signing up for things, or you're asking for stuff, and you know they're going to send you spam. So if you have an email address that's dedicated for that, guess what? It doesn't matter if they send you spam. And I also recommend that you have a subscription email. So for those of you who are thinking, oh, we're playing with the metrics about newsletters. Well, no, you're not, because you're subscribing to your newsletters using a subscription email, a very specific. And it just by having this separation of communication, suddenly the internet security's gone right through. It goes right up, because nobody can access your accounts if they don't know what email address you've connected to things to. But you do need to keep a record of it, because if something goes wrong, you need to be able to go, oh, that email account was connected to these accounts over here, so now I can go and deal with that. So there is that aspect.
Judy, it's Linda again. So one of the latest things I've been getting, and this reminds me of your email, that's why I wanted to bring it up, is that I'll get a message on my personal email saying, oh, we noticed you're logging in. I'm in California. You just logged in from somewhere in Virginia at this time. If it wasn't you, click this link. And it's related to my website, which I have a completely other email for. And I'm always appalled, because the first reaction is like, oh my God, somebody's hacking me, so I want to go click that link. And it really takes being present. I think, I'm a mom. I've got 50,000 things happening in the morning, so my brain is everywhere and it's not nowhere at the same time. So I see these emails, and that's when I feel I'm most vulnerable, when I can't sit down and just really analyze the email, and I just react to it out of fear that somebody might be hacking, some account. So I think that thing is really what you're saying. I know it sounds like a lot, and we had talked about this with you, I think, a few months ago, but it definitely makes sense. And so I do that with any kind of email that now they want to, if I want to buy a t-shirt, they're like, oh, subscribe to get 15% off. Then I have this rando Gmail account that I use for that discount that I want to get. So that's all the crap goes there. But having all goes there. Yeah, having all these emails is really, really useful, actually.
Yeah, and it's just, it makes it very quick and easy for you to go through and say, oh, that's a scam, go away. Let's just note that's a scam.
Exactly.
Because it went to the wrong email. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the most dangerous part of the internet is actually us and our own communications and what we do. And it comes down to the details. If you just skim through this list, I have legit seen people post, and some of them have been my friends, photos with this sort of information online. I was absolutely mortified when I saw somebody, oh, look at my new credit card. I'm like, you did what? Oh my God. And you look at the comments. This was a couple of years ago, and so it was somebody on YouTube. They were so excited about their new credit card, and all the comments were saying, hey, show us the other side, show us the back. And what did she do? She turned it around. Oh my God. I was like, you moron. What were you thinking? Seriously. In New Zealand, I don't know what it's like in the States, but in New Zealand, our driver's license number is issued when you get your learner's license for the first time. So we frequently will see people who are so excited that their teenagers have got their driver's license, and they'll show their teenager holding their temporary license, but right there is the number. And I'm like, you've just destroyed your child's ability to protect themselves online. Get that photo offline now, please. Just don't even put it there. Some of these other things are not as dangerous, but like the photos of your business cards. If you've chosen carefully what email address you got there. Just, it's okay. You just need to think about it. They are dangerous because you're opening yourself to hackers. But when you are aware of the risks, then you can take steps to mitigate those risks. And that's really what I'm all about. Okay, I want you, with anything and everything that you do online, I want you to remember that nothing is private. Even your private communications can be made public. You sent an email to somebody and all they have to do is take a screen capture of it and then share it to social media. Case in point, Cockygate. So in 2018, this happened. You had an author who, I still don't know how they managed to do this, but they got a trademark on the word cocky. Yes, the word cocky. And they sent cease and desist letters to authors who just happened to have the word cocky in their titles. And somewhere along the way, Amazon got involved. And if you happen to have the word cocky in your promo copy as well, your books were being taken down. This was an absolute mess. But it all started because somebody took a screenshot of an email and shared it on Twitter. That's it. That's how it started. And it just blew up. It was impressive. Private communications made public. Nothing is private. Once it's on the web, it's out there and it's never going away. There are people, this is something I've had to make very clear to my children, that there are people who have lost their jobs because of something they said on Twitter when they were 15 over a decade ago. This is the reality of the world that we live in. This is the reality that my children live in. So they have learned that you cannot just blindly post things. My daughter has taken it one step further and she has separate accounts for the different types of messages that she sends out. So these are the things we just have to think about now. Okay. As editors, we need to have websites. And if you don't have a website, you're missing out on probably the biggest piece of internet real estate that you can have. The reason we need a website is because it's going to contain the most up-to-date information about our services. It may not contain information about our prices because I don't put my prices up there, but it is definitely the stuff I offer. It's what I define the different technology or the different terms as. And if you're dealing with things like line editing, I think line editing is the one form of editing that we can all agree that we can't agree as to what it actually is. So putting it on your website, what you define these services as, is a fantastic way to go through and help vet some of that stuff. But remember that a website is not a blog. They're not the same thing. So if you don't want a blog, don't. Seriously, don't. You can just stick with the basic website. And the basic website for a editor is going to have about page of some description. There'll be some bio. And I recommend that the bios are tailored towards what you would do for a client, not what your qualifications are. But yes, you want your qualifications somewhere on your website. You might have a profile image, maybe not. And you're going to have a call to action of some description. You're going to describe what your services are. You might have testimonials sitting there. You're going to have a contact page. Now, that contact page will have how people can get hold of you via email. You might have a contact form, which will help with some of the bots, some of the scams that come through. But the unfortunate side is that in some countries, you also have to include a postal address. This is a legal requirement in some countries, not all countries, but some of them. And unfortunately, we all have to have privacy policies now. This is a legal requirement worldwide. Different anti-spam laws and different privacy laws give people the right to know what information you're collecting, how you store that information, and what you use that information for. That's a privacy policy. So we are legally required to put it into our websites now. But the most dangerous part of any website is something known as a whois search. So the whois search, or the whois database, is an publicly accessible database that has all the domains found throughout the world. It's every single domain in existence is in this database. And the information that you can get is things like who the domain is hosted with, the domain server addresses, when it comes up for renewal, registration, who administers it. And I'm just going to quickly go over to a web browser. We can all see this? Yes? I hope that was a yes, because I still can't see you, but that's okay.
Yes, I think we can all see it. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So this is the Whois website. You don't even have to log into it. You just come to it, and it is literally whois.com. It is not an acronym for anything. It just is Whois. And we can enter in any domain and get the information. Now, I'm just so I can show you how dangerous this is, I'm going to enter in a company name that I know does not have privacy protection on their stuff. And I feel okay using this particular company because of the fact it is a public company and I can get their information from other sources. So I've chosen Air New Zealand, which is airnewzealand.com, which is the national airline carrier for New Zealand. But if I just run the Whois search, this is what comes up. So I can see that they got the domain first in 1997. It comes up for renewal in 2025. This is their hosting where their servers are. But this is what I wanted you to see. The registrant information is here. This is a physical address of where their offices are. This is a phone number and their public email. This is all publicly accessible information. I can get this information from other sources, but this is why I wanted to show you this. Imagine that this is your own website. If this information is publicly available, anyone can access it. I'm just going to put in my own website just to show you what you want to do. Oh, might help if I can learn to type today. So judylmohr.com. So from this, you can see I first got my domain in 2015. It comes up for renewal in 2026. This is how people are able to get my hosting provider. I mentioned to you before how I get those scams. They rightly have said your hosting provider, there's an issue with your hosting provider, but it goes to the public accessible email. This is how they're getting who my hosting provider is, because it's right here, this information. But my personal information is hidden, and that's because I use privacy protection. It's normally an extra little cost. I think I have to pay in the order of about $15 US a year to add the privacy protection onto my domain. But just to hide my information from this database, it's worth it. Totally, totally worth it. Okay. So my key messages that I'm hoping you will take away from all of this is that don't spread yourself too thin. Just, you can't do it all. But put yourself first and put your family first in the equation. Protect yourself. Think about what you're doing. And before you send anything, before you do anything, before you check, just double check, triple check, quadruple check before you hit send. I mean, there's that old joke that we make that the best copy editing happens after you've hit the send button. So yeah, just double check. Trust your instincts. If your instincts are telling you something's off, odds are it probably is. Everything is in this book. Yes, that's the link for the book. But I want to quickly just point out, we were talking about that email. I have got a little checklist for you guys that talks about these different emails of what you need to do. Now, this particular one is actually tailored a bit more towards writers, but the same concepts apply for editors. So I think that let's open this up for questions, assuming I can figure out how to turn off my screen share. There's that button. Stop screen sharing. And now I can see you.
Okay. Wow, Judy, that is so much information. So it really, I mean, Yes, it gives us so much to think about, and I think one of my big takeaways is, like you said, is just that awareness, knowing what you don't know and what you choose to do, what you feel comfortable doing. You know, that's kind of after the fact, but just first kind of opening up our awareness so that we realize kind of what's actually going on. So that was really helpful for me.
Yeah. It's all in that book. Breaks it down. I mean, you've seen that book, Brittany,
Yeah,
if I
yeah,
remember.
yes,
It breaks it down into little sections of all the things that you need to think about, including the privacy policy,
right.
and where the legalities are and what you kind of have to have present. Okay,
Linda,
questions.
I think you're silenced. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that. Sorry. What I liked about your book is that because it's broken down into sections, you can tackle just one thing at a time, whatever your bandwidth at the moment lets you. So I think that was really helpful. And I want to say, like, I try to always put myself in the mindset of the new editor that's just started out freelancing. And there's so many other things that seem so much more important to us when we start out, and we don't think about internet security or our work security as a priority because it just doesn't seem until it becomes a priority, and it's too late by then. So this is one of those things that you need to have this like little checklist in place and get started, because if you start off already with these tools in place and with this way of thinking, you're just setting yourself up for success, or at least less drama in the future. And again, one of the things I mentioned before, I think this is such great, valuable information for our clients. I do a lot of author coaching to help authors build their platforms, their author platforms. And this idea that I need to share everything. And it's like, no. So being able, I think what your book really does too is like it provides some tools that I can share with my clients so that they can be safer, and you can be that person that introduced them to, that website, or to, having a different email address maybe for the book awards and things like that. So yeah, that was really, really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. So one thing I know I've had to do sort of semi-recently, it came to a head last year during the Women in Publishing Summit. So Google has become so part of our lives now. Everything we do is from Google. But I refuse, absolutely, utterly refuse to get a custom domain email that is a Google email. Because one, it's expensive. It's something like $60 or $70 a year US. So you put and remember, I'm in New Zealand, so everything has to, the cost just goes through the roof. And so you have that added cost, but you are also in a situation where they're insisting you use all their products, but you're using a public facing email. So suddenly everybody has access to whatever that Google Drive is. They know what that email address is, and you're tying everything to it. Your internet security has just gone through the toilet.
Google is also the worst in terms of sharing your information.
Yeah, and AI has added this whole other layer of complexity to it, because it is now requiring that we have our stuff available for training. I was mortified, absolutely mortified, to discover, and I think I discovered this about a month ago, actually, that it is now in the conditions for Microsoft that you must allow them to use your materials for training, or you can't access certain features. I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
That's incredible.
I was mortified.
Now, how many, I also want to say, like, how many of us just feel like we spent half the day two-factor authenticating ourselves everywhere? I'm like, oh my God, like I just spent the whole morning just validating myself on my computer all morning everywhere. And so it's exhausting. So I'm always hoping there'll be something that we can just narrow it down and just keep it more simple.
They're using the same computer all the time does mean make things a little bit easier, because you can actually tend to say, yes, I remember, just accept this computer, it's okay. But
Yeah.
those are cookies that are being deposited, and every single time you clear your cookies, you gotta log in again.
Yeah. And then, I remember when Brittany and I a few years ago started using LastPass as our password hub for everything. And then they had that, break. They had that hacking thing, and nothing happened to me, but I'm like, crap, like the whole purpose of using something like LastPass is because you feel things are safer. So I have a spreadsheet. I ended up being like, I'm over this crap. I have a spreadsheet with all my passwords and everything. Every time I need, a password to remember, I have to go to, and so that spreadsheet is usually always open and minimized on my desktop because I'm always clicking back and forth. And at first I hated it, but then it just became like second nature.
Yeah,
So-
I've got that. I do the spreadsheet thing too. I would also recommend, if you're doing the spreadsheet thing, data encrypt and password protect it.
I was just gonna say, is that password protected, Linda?
Yeah.
No, it's not. Of course it's not. I'm just trying to make it easier for everybody to hack me.
Go into it. Go password protect it. And there's, in mine, there is only like 2 or 3 passwords that are not in it. And they are for things like my bank. And I think, I can't remember what the other one was that touching about. But I know what they are, and my family knows what they are. So in the event something happens to me and they have to, for whatever, they can at least get into the systems and do what they need to do. And the one, the password that I use for the bank is the same password as for my database. So they can get into my family can get in. If something was to happen to me, they can get in.
So Judy, can I ask a question? I was just about to ask if you had a password management system or software that you recommended, but it sounds like perhaps
I use spreadsheet. I use a spreadsheet. And it's partly because I have my background before I became an editor was actually as a database designer. So I have all of my little tools that I use frequently, I've developed myself. And it is because I kind of trust what I do a bit more. But with what Microsoft is doing with AI, I'm now like, even the security of that's now been compromised. Thank you guys. So yeah. That said, though, my password database is the only document that I have that doesn't automatically do that saving. I've turned off the automatic saving because it means I can keep it offline, that particular one. So.
I have a couple of questions too. Oh, Brittany, go ahead. You were going to say something.
Well, I had a question about and I don't want to go off topic too much, but the Microsoft AI, because I had been concerned about that, but then I thought I read something that it wasn't a concern, but now you're saying that it is again. And so I'm wondering, is that if you're using Microsoft Cloud, that your materials can be used for training, or is it Microsoft Desktop, or is it just doesn't matter? I mean, on a certain level,
if you read through the contracts or you read through the stuff, it's anything that's in the OneDrive.
Okay, but if it's not in OneDrive, it's okay, because I don't use OneDrive for.
If it's not in OneDrive, then it's locally stored and they can't get to it anyway. So.
Oh, okay, perfect. All right, Linda, go for it.
Do you have, because I had heard from another podcast somewhere that there's a way to, or a website where you can like request that your information, your personal information be deleted off the internet or removed. Do you know anything about this? I'm trying to remember what it was and I don't even remember where I heard this recently.
I know of what you're talking about. I don't know what it's called. But I'm also of the frame of mind of, if you are thinking from word go about what you're putting out there, it kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Being an author as well, I have to have that public face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that is just a downside of our industry today. That is just kind of the downside. So I have always been very cautious, very aware of what I'm posting. And there, were things that I made mistakes in my younger years when my kids were like babies and stuff like that. But I am like, technology has moved on since then, because that was like 20 years ago as well. So the technology has just kind of moved, and I will occasionally go through and just look at stuff and go, okay, time to delete that, get rid of it. Once it's out there, it's out there. But if you've deleted it, hopefully people will have forgotten it exists.
Yeah, exactly. The other question I had was, how do you feel about voice authentication, or what do you know? Because I'm really worried with voice authentication. We had a situation at home with my husband being recorded once, and and someone getting into his bank account, like resetting his password and things. And we don't know. We're pretty sure that's how it happened, but I'm always denying, like, I do not want to be authenticated by voice. Do you have any thoughts, or do you know anything about that?
I had no choice with my bank.
Okay.
The bank didn't have a choice. But New Zealand banking systems are on a different level to what the US uses. And I know this with certainty because we have been using internet banking for over a decade. And in New Zealand now, nothing is going through checks. They don't exist. The banks won't even take them. You can't get cashier's checks. Everything has to go through internet banking. I can put money into somebody else's account, and all I need is their bank account number. That's it, and off I go, and I can put their money in their account. But I can't take anything out of their account,
of course,
without additional information, which for the bank that I'm with also includes a customer number, not just my name and my birth date and my address, but it's also this very unique customer number, which if you don't have that, you can't get in. So there's like multiple tiers of information. And even when there's a change, every single time there's a change in the system, I get text messages.
Yeah.
So there's a whole other layer, and this is not just my bank. This is all banks in New Zealand. And it's interesting how New Zealand has been in this situation. We've had this conversation with multiple people. Technology is actually tested in New Zealand. We tend to see it first when it's on this scale because our demographics is such a wide scale of demographics in just a small area. So they're going to see how well adapted it's going to be, or whether they make modifications or whatever. And it's like, Facebook will put new settings in. New Zealand tends to see it first because of this.
Yeah.
So, it's just one of those things.
Judy, going back to this whole thing of posting images, I just read an article that I had just looked up again because I read it yesterday morning on the Associated Press, that South Korea is fighting deep fake porn, and they're having a massive I was like, what is that? And I didn't know about this, but that, yes, they will hack your pictures and create these videos. It's incredible.
Deep fake, when they start talking about deep fake, it's anything and everything where they're taking your photos, your voice, or whatever, and they've made fake stuff and they've shipped it. But the problem is that the internet has always had multiple layers to it. We have the internet that we all use, and then you also have what's known as the dark web.
Yeah.
And the dark web has been around since its inception, and you can blame the US government for it.
Yeah. A lot to digest there.
Right. Marie, do we have a question? Oh, you're
You're
on mute.
muted.
You need to head out.
Yes, I need to jump off, but thank you very much, Judy and everyone. Good to see you all. I have to go back to my other job.
Good to see you, Marie. Thank you for joining us, and
Bye, everyone.
thank you. Bye-bye. Well, I know it's about time for us to close out, and we so appreciate Judy joining us today. I feel like I learned a lot. I'm sure we all learned a lot. We will go ahead and just kind of clean up. We recorded this session, so we'll clean up the video and put it up so everyone can have access to it, have access to the information about the check sheet and the book and all of that as well. And Linda, is there anything else?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Judy, do you have a place of preference for us to purchase the book? Like, is there a place where, as an author myself, where you make more money or you collect more than Amazon maybe that you would prefer?
No, the thing that's funny about this is that Amazon is going to be the biggest store. That's where you're going to get it. And I'll tell you now, it's if you're buying the digital version, you're going to get it the cheapest through Amazon. But the goal for this book that I always have a goals for everything that I do to understand. But my goal for this book was to get the information out there, to actually help writers and editors, because there are some chapters in there that are more specific about freelancers, to take control of their platforms. And to me, that was more important than making money.
I love it. And I think what I want to recommend then to each of us, if you have a local EFA chapter that you participate with, contact your chapter coordinator and see if they can book Judy to speak or do a presentation. Because I think more editors know about this, the safer we will all be and the more prepared we'll be for the way things are happening. So
yeah. And you can help your clients as well, especially if you're doing, like, I've got a mentoring client that she's booked in a session specifically, so we can talk about her platform and we can talk about what she can do to stay safe and to do things online and how she can manage it and what she can do. And this is the world we live in. It's the world we live in.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Judy. It was great seeing you again. Are you going to be at the Women in Publishing Summit next year? Do you know?
Yes. Well, I've bought my ticket, so I have a ticket, and I've actually put in a proposal, which of course we're still waiting to find out whether we've gotten it or not. The proposal that we put in, I teamed up with Elizabeth Duthsey, who's in the UK, and we wanted to talk about ISBNs.
Perfect.
Because ISBNs, most of the information that you get out there tends to be US centric. And we're like, there are so many of us who are outside of the US that kind of need to do this as well, guys.
So true. So true. Good for you. Yes. Well, hopefully we'll see you there as well.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Judy. So good seeing you. Thank you, everyone, for being here today.
It's good to see you all. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And Brittany, are you able to? Oh, Brittany left. Bye, Catherine.